Hi guys, it's me Terry of the Yarnjoy podcast. Danica of Lady Loves Crochet on Facebook, she has a Facebook group and it is called Lady Love Design Boutique. And she is a crochet designer that designs crochet Graphgan charts. And over on her Facebook group, Lady Love Design Boutique, she has an event for her members called the New Stitch of the Month. And she asked me to demonstrate that new stitch that she's going to be releasing for February, this upcoming month. Okay, so the new stitch of the month for February is going to be the block stitch, using the block stitch in Graphgans, okay? And so the chart that she has made, will be making available for this challenge of learning this new stitch, is this shamrock chart. So go over into her Facebook group, join the group, and if get this chart and you can work on this challenge along with the other members there in the group. If you like to do crochet Graphgans, it would be an awesome group to join. You can also learn this stitch just to add a new technique to your crochet skills. Okay, so this is the chart I'm working on. In order to do the block stitch, you first have to know how many stitches, or how many squares your chart has, okay? This technique is working horizontally, line by line, on your following your chart. And so in order to start, you have to have a foundation chain, okay? And in this block stitch, for each square on your chart is 3 double crochet stitches, okay? And then you will have 1 double crochet or a chain 3, because a chain 3s in this technique is counted as a double crochet stitch. Okay, so you will have 1 stitch on either side that won't be counted toward the little squares, and that would be like a border stitch on either side, okay? Okay, so to calculate how many chains you're going to need to get your foundation started, you just count the number of squares that you have. Okay, and in this chart I have 29 squares across. So you count the number of squares you have, and then you multiply it by 3, and then you add 4 to it. So this chart has 29 squares, so 29 times 3 is 87, and then you add 4 more stitches to it. So 87 plus 4 is 91. So we're going to start with 91 stitches all the way across. So I'm going to take my background color and I'm going to chain 91, which will be 29 times 3 plus 4, okay? Okay, so I got my 91 chains that I did. Okay, and now I'm going to start reading on the chart, and I need 13 squares on the chart before I start changing colors, okay? So remember, each square is going to be consisting of 3 double crochets, okay, for each square. So 13 times 3 is 39, okay? So now this first one I'm going to make, this is going to be the border stitch on the side, okay? So to get started, I'm going to double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then go ahead and crochet 2 more, double crochet 2 more, and that will be making your first block. Okay, now the way you're going to count these is, remember that this chain right here, this turning chain, is going to be the border stitch that's on each side. So where I want to start counting is that second, it's actually the very first double crochet stitch, not the chain 3, okay? And so I need to do 13 blocks to get to my color change. So I'm going to start counting right there on this stitch, and I'm going to do 39 double crochets. Okay, so I got my 39 double crochets all done, and that's going to bring us up on the chart all the way up to where we need to do our color change, okay? And remember, this is not counting the very first turning chain, okay? So 39 double crochets. So I'm going to mark that on my chart. That I've done all those rows. Okay, I would advise you to use a pencil when marking on your chart, but just for the video purposes, I am using this Sharpie just because the lines show up a whole lot darker and you can see them better. Okay, so now I'm ready to change colors. Okay, so I've completed that 39th double crochets, okay, and so now I'm going to take my stem color, which I'm going to use this brown, and I went ahead and I made a slip knot on the end of the yarn. Okay, so I'm going to hook on my loop right there and pull it snug onto my hook. Okay, and now I'm going to pull that through my loop right here where I ended off my 39th double crochet. See that? Okay, and then I'm going to pull this down tight. Oops, wait just a minute, it went through the little knot here. Okay, so I looped it through, and now I'm going to go ahead and start my double crochet into the next stitch with the brown. Okay. Oops. Okay, so now, I know that looks kind of messy, but now what you're going to do is you're going to take that green and I'm going to pull it and snug it up so that way the join is going to be hidden in that double crochet stitch. Okay. Okay, and I also want to make sure that my tails, because this work right here is going to be the front side of your work. Okay, anytime you're reading from the chart, then that working row is your front side. Okay, so you want to get the tails always worked and hanging in the back. Okay, so now I need to do, on my chart, you see I have 2 squares of the brown that I need to do, and each square is 3 stitches, so I need to do 6 stitches of the brown. So there's my 1. 2, 3, okay, that's the first one, and then 4, 5, 6. There's 6, and that will represent these 2 squares right there. Okay, so now as you see, we need to change back to the green, and we're going to join it the same way that we did. Okay, so I'm going to take my next bobbin here, and I'm going to join that one. And remember, I start with a slip knot. Okay, so slip knot. Now I'm going to pull it through that loop right there of the brown, snug that down, and then now I'm going to continue with my double crochets. And on this chart, where you see that we're going to do it all the way to the end. Okay, so I'm going to do double crochets all the way down my remaining chain all the way to the end, and then I will meet you when we have to turn and go the other direction. Okay, so I double crocheted all the way to the end of my chain. Okay, now I'm going to get ready to chain and turn and go the opposite direction. But first thing I want to do is go ahead and mark off my chart from where I had finished the row. Okay, so we've done that whole first row. Okay, now the next row that we're going to do is the back side, or the foundation, or you can call it the setup row. Okay, and you will not be following the chart for that except for where the color change happens, but I'll show you that when we get there. Okay, so let's go ahead and mark our work, so then we'll know that this side is the front side. Okay, so I want to go ahead and mark this side, and what I did is I went ahead and went back to the very first part of this row where I did my first double crochets, and I'm just going to mark this side as being my front side. So that way when I turn and I see that marker, then I know that I'm going to be reading off the chart again. Okay, so back to where we left off. We're going to chain 1, and then we need to turn our work. Okay, so I'm using my bobbins here, so let me get that straightened out. Okay, so one more twist here. Okay. Okay, so now we chained 1, and now we're going to and we turned our work, and so now we're going to do a single crochet in the very top. This chain 1 that we did is not going to count as a stitch, okay? It just helped us to turn. So we need to go ahead and do 1 single crochet in the top of that stitch, okay? Now between that first stitch, let me zoom you up so you can see it better. Okay, so between that first stitch and the next stitch, we want to do a single crochet, and it's not in the top of the stitch, it's actually between those 2 stitches. Okay, now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to skip 3 stitches, and then we're going to single crochet between the next 2 stitches. Okay, so we're skipping 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then right there I'm going to put my hook, and I'm going to do a single crochet between those stitches. See that? Okay, so chain 2, and then we're going to do that again. We're going to have 3 stitches, and then we're going to separate the next 2 with a single crochet between them. Okay, and so we're going to keep doing that all the way across. Chain 2, and then skip 3 stitches, and then single crochet between the next 2 stitches. See? And see what that is doing is let me get in front of the black here, sorry. That is defining, or it's showing us where the blocks are. See that? So chain 2, and then skip 3 stitches, and then single crochet between the next 2 stitches. Okay, and that will see how they're separating them, and they're turning them into blocks. Okay, so you're going to do that setup row, and you're going to go all the way across, and when we get to this point where this color change is, I will meet you up there, and then we'll do the color change together. Okay, so I'm doing that setup row all the way across, and now I'm come upon where the color changes are, and these tails, of course, should be on this side because this is actually the back side of the work. Okay, so I just did a single crochet between those 2, and see I've got 3 more stitches there before it turns to the brown. So I'm going to continue with the green. So I'm going to chain 2, whoops. And then I'm going to single crochet in between the green stitch and the brown stitch for me. Okay. Okay, so now as you can see, the next 2 sets of squares, 2 squares, because it's 3 stitches each, is brown. So I'm going to drop this green, but this time I'm going to bring it to the front because this is actually the back side of the work. Okay, and then I'm going to take the brown, and I'm going to pick that up and just do a chain by looping it through the loop. Okay, and then I'm going to take the green that I used, and I'm going to pull it up tight. Okay, and now I'm going to keep going with, remember there's already a single crochet there, so we're just going to do our chains. Now that first chain stitch that we did to loop the brown through the green loop, we don't count that as a chain. So now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to continue on doing that setup row. So 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to single crochet between those 2 sets of 3. See that? Okay, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and then we have to skip 3 stitches, and then we're going to single crochet in between the next 2 double crochets. Okay, Now this tail right here, this is the short tail, so you're going to weave that one in when you get ready to. Okay, so now we need to change back to the green, see, because continuing on doing the setup row, we are now doing green stitches, okay? So I'm going to drop this brown, although I want to bring it to the front because that's the back side of the work. And I'm going to pick up my green yarn, and I'm going to pull the loop through to get me started. I'm going to pull the brown one tight, okay, so that will hide where the color change happened. And then I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to continue. And so I'll skip 3 stitches, and then I'm going to single crochet between the next 2 double crochets, doing the same thing on the setup row. Chain 2, skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3. We're going to single crochet in that hole there between the next 2 stitches, okay? See, it's still making our squares. Okay, so now I'm going to keep doing that and go all the way to the end of this row, and I'll meet you right when we get at the end to make sure we get our edge stitches right. Okay, so I'm getting up to the end here. So I'm going to chain 3, not 3, sorry. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then skip 3 stitches, and it's going to go right between the last double crochet and that turning chain, and go ahead and do a single crochet. Okay, now, but we can't forget about that turning chain. So now we're going to not chain, but we're going to single crochet in the top of that turning chain, and that will be that edge border stitch, okay? Okay, so now we're ready to turn our work again. Okay, so now when we turn our work, we're going to start doing the double crochet stitches, which will mean that we will be reading the chart again, okay? Okay, so to turn it, we're going to chain 3 because that's like a double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to turn our work over, okay? And then let me turn it all over completely here. Okay, so then we're going to look at our chart because we're ready to start making our squares from our chart. So if we look at our chart, we're back over here again, okay? So in this, the way we read this chart is always going to be this direction. It's not doing a serpentine type thing where we're following the chart. We're always going to be starting from the same side, okay? So, in order to make our first square, we're going to be working in those chain 2 loops that we made across when we did our setup row. So we're going to do 3 double crochets into that chain 2 loop, into the first chain 2 loop. So 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. Okay, so that is the first square on this next row, right here. Okay, see that? Okay, so now if we count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We have to have 14 green rows before we pick up the brown one and do part of the stem. Okay, so I've already did, not rows, sorry, 14 green squares. So we did the first one already. So now I need to do 13 more of these 3 double crochet groupings that will make the squares, okay? So remember, the next one will go into the chain 2 loop that's there. So I'll do 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. See, 3 double crochets. Okay, and so that's the next square on the chart. And then the next one will go into this next chain 2 loop. 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that is the first 3 squares on the chart. Okay, right there. Okay, so now we need to go until we've got 14 squares. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, yes. So 14 squares. So I'm going to keep going until I've got 14 squares of my 3 double crochet groupings, okay? Working in those chain 2 loops. Okay, so I've done 13 of these green squares. I need to do one more before I start the brown, and as you can see, it's going to be on top of my first brown square that I had done before on the stem. So the way I do that is, this is my working brown here. Not the tail end. The tail end is there, but of course, like I said, we will be weaving that in. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to do one more square, though, of the green. So I'll just work over this brown, okay? So I'm going to do my 3, there's my chain 2 loop. I'm going to do 3 double crochets, and I'm just working over my brown, the working end that I'm going to be using. Oops. Sorry, I got the tail and not the working end. Got to be careful. Okay, so I'm just going to work over it. Okay, because I need it right here. So 2, 3. Okay, so that was my 14th square of green, okay, which is here on my chart. Okay, so I need to do one square of the brown, the stem color, okay? So now I do want to use my brown, so now I'm going to drop my green at the back there, and I'm going to start using my brown. Okay, so all I do is, now when the yarn is at the bottom like that, it's coming up from the bottom, the way you can do that is you keep your green loop, that's green loop, you keep it on the hook just at the back of your hook, okay? And so you just insert your hook into that chain 2 loop, and you pull up a stitch, okay, on the brown, okay, and then you start chaining, because remember, a chain 3 equals a double crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 3. 1, 2, and then for my third one, I'm going to go through both the brown loop and the green loop on my hook. So 3, there's my chain 3, and that is a double crochet. That's the first stitch of that square, okay? Now the green one is here in the back, and I'll just pull that tight to hide that color change in there, okay? And then now I will continue on with the brown, completing my square. So I need 2 more double crochets, and that will complete the square. Okay, so see that? And if this loop right here, if that loop loosens up, it's okay, because when you come back around, when you're going to do the back side, which is the next setup row, you can just tug on that a little bit before you use the yarn to make that setup row, okay? Okay, so now I've got that one brown square that I need to do, and now I need to change back to the green again. See, because on the chart there's just one stem color. Okay, now I'm going to do the green blocks all the way to the end of the work. Okay, so I need to go ahead and change back to the green, and see, as before, it is coming from the bottom, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the brown toward the back, and then I'm going to get ready to pick up this green. And the way I do that is I insert my hook from front to back into the next chain 2 loop from the setup row, and then I'm going to pull that forward to get my green yarn. I always want to pull it from the back, and then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and then remember, well, chain 2, and then on my third one I'm going to chain, and then I'm going to go through the green loop and the brown loop on my hook to connect them together. See that? And then I'm going to take my brown yarn and I'm going to pull it tight, and then I'm going to continue on with my square using the green yarn. So I need 2 more double crochets to complete that square. Okay, so there you go. So that's how you do the color change. Okay, so now I'm going to finish this row by doing the rest of these blocks on my second row here, all the way across to the end, okay? And then I will meet you up at the end. Okay, so I'm finishing this row of all those squares, and I just want to show you that the last one is in this last loop, but then see, you have this, the foundation stitch on the side, so you want to go ahead and do a double crochet into the top of your first single crochet from that foundation row that you did, the setup row, see, and that finishes it off. Okay, so see, you're going to have a double crochet on either end that's like a border. Okay, and that of course does not count as part of your chart. You're only counting the squares that you're forming. Okay, so you would chain one and turn your work, and now you're going to do another setup row. Okay, I finished this part on my chart. So we finished all that. Okay, so now we're going to chain one, like I said, turn our work, and then we're going to be doing a setup row, and that will be it will not be counted on your chart. Okay, so chain one, turn your work, and see there's no marker there, so that means we're not working off the chart now, we're just doing the setup row. And the setup row is single crochet right there, and then a single crochet in between that first block and that border stitch. Okay, and then you're going to do your chain two and then single crochet, and see that's really easy to find them now because it's just between those you're separating the squares. So chain two, and then of course that single crochet is going to go right into that opening right there. Chain two, see, it gets easier. Chain two, and then you're going to do a single crochet between the groupings, the blocks, chain two, and so on. Okay, and then when you get to here, you're going to be doing a single crochet, chain two, and then a single crochet. You're going to go between those two right there, but then you're going to go ahead and drop your green and pick up the brown, and you're going to do a chain two and then a single crochet between there just for that one square. Okay, and then you'll pick up this green, and then you'll continue on, chain two, single crochet, chain two, single, and all the way to the end. That's your setup row. Okay, so finish the row, getting ready to turn. I chain three to turn, and as we turn, we now see our marker, so that means that we're going to be working off the chart again, and we'll be doing the third row. Okay, so we find our chain two loops, and that's where the blocks are going to be going, and we do 3 double crochets in each block. No chains in between, we just do 3 double crochets. Okay. Okay, so that is the block stitch. Now, if you need to rewind to see how we do the color changing and how we carry the yarns, then feel free to rewind or watch the video again to get the technique down on how to change colors and how to carry the yarns where you need to. Okay, I wouldn't carry over the yarn more than about 2 blocks before just cutting it and starting again at a new spot. Okay, so thank you so much for coming along with me to learn this block stitch, doing Graphgans with the block stitch. Thank you, Danica, for asking me to do this tutorial to help show or demonstrate the new Stitch of the Month event for February that she's going to be having. Go over and check out her Facebook group if you enjoy doing Graphgans or just want to learn a new technique. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye!